Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the Deutsche Bank building, which can only be described as a dilapidated ghost building after what happened and transpired on September 11th. We're going to be talking about the origins of this building and the timeline from 9/11, the damage that it sustained, and its demolition after several years of them trying to renovate it. The amount of contamination that was in the building was ridiculous, but this building, originally an office building opening in 1974, cost around $120 million. It was owned by the Deutsche Bank out of Germany. It had a total floor count of 39 floors and a height just above 500 feet. So it was a building, obviously New York City, it's going to be overshined by the World Trade Center complex, both of the Twin Towers, but it was still a decently sized building, and you can see the position of it in relation to the Twin Towers. And then obviously on September 11th, 2001, it did suffer severe damage. I wouldn't classify the damage necessarily as catastrophic. The issue was the contamination that made the building basically unsavable. Now you can see the gouge in the side of the building, the facade of the Twin Towers, the famous slits. That is literally the wall of one of the Twin Towers gouged into the side, creating massive damage throughout the entire structure, especially on the front-facing side of the Deutsche Bank. Now, originally, when you look at this building, it stayed up, and they thought they possibly could renovate it for the next few years, but understanding the amount of contamination that was in the interior of the building and also the amount of damage the interior sustained led to an eventual demolition, which began in 2007. So the real timeline I want to talk about is 9/11 until 2007 when they started demolishing it. This building sat as basically what I would call a ghost building because there was a giant black net around the building trying to stabilize it, and it just looks completely dilapidated and almost like a scene from the apocalypse. Now, in August of 2007, there was a fire that broke out, which further delayed the demolition even longer, and the building was finally officially put out of its misery in early 2007. So this building took 4 years to demolish, in part due to a massive fire, also due to the workers having to be careful with the amount of contamination the building had, the amount of dust and debris from 9/11. It's not healthy for a building to absorb that much, and certainly the interior of this building did absorb catastrophic contamination, which also furthered its demise. But overall, this building was doomed the second the first tower was hit, because when the Twin Towers collapsed, the collateral damage that was suffered by the Deutsche Bank ended up causing the some 35-story bank building to eventually be demolished, controlled demolition style, for about 4 years. How about that timeline? A 10-year timeline since 9/11 until the building was finally put out of its misery, and now they're trying to repurpose the area and possibly put up a new 5 World Trade Center, which would be another kind of like skyscraper. You can see the renderings of that. The buildings that we're waiting on in terms of redevelopment. When it comes to the World Trade Center district, it is Building 2 or the South Tower, and then building number 5. It's a little bit different. You would think, well, building 5 was originally a smaller 8 or 9 story building. Why would they redevelop it in a completely different spot? Well, most of the buildings are actually in a different spot, obviously, considering the memorial pools are where both of the Twin Towers used to stand, and also the Marriott 3 World Trade Center is a completely different building in and of itself. And so is 4, 5, and 6. The original 4, 5, and 6 were very small office buildings that were completely obsolete. They're obviously not going to rebuild those, and if they didn't rebuild the Twin Towers either, but you can see the potential renderings for what that could look like. And this project, the new 5 World Trade Center, is in a very similar spot that 2 World Trade Center is in, to where they come out with designs. Well, I will say 2 World Trade Centers had like 7 different designs, but it's also a much bigger project. This one, they're thinking of doing it. It may or may not happen. Normally, when it comes to skyscrapers, it is very hard to get them built, especially nowadays. I know there's a big skyscraper going up right now in New York City, so maybe after that one gets complete. Personally, I would really love to see both 5 World Trade Center get built and 2 World Trade Center get built. I think it would look great in the skyline, especially when it comes to fully completing the rebuild of the financial district. But that's just my aesthetic, version of it. Now, in terms of the building itself, I do think it is a pretty impressive design that they've got going on with the potential new 5 World Trade Center. The base of it looks very nice, futuristic, and then it does have that modern glow with kind of different little areas going up, branching out, and you can see the greenery that they're trying to incorporate. Normally, I'm not a big fan when it comes to the incorporation of greenery because it tends to make things just look overgrown, but this depiction actually looks pretty decent, and we've also seen possibly greenery being involved with a potential 2 World Trade Center rendering as well, so we will see if it actually gets done. So that is the story of the Deutsche Bank building, a building that was dilapidated from the collateral damage of the Twin Towers to where parts of the wall of the Twin Towers gouged into its side. And also you've got all the dust, all the contamination going onto the floors. And actually the contamination seeps into the floor and into a lot of the rugs and carpet and furniture and all of that exposed area because it ripped part of the building off. That's going to be a big issue. And they originally thought, well, they could possibly rebuild it. They put up suspensions to make sure the building was sturdy. They put up netting around the entire thing for several years. And it just looks completely, dead inside just looking at that photo with the netting up. It's a sad, sad situation. And then they finally started demolishing it. It was delayed multiple times due to various things, including a fire during the demolition in 2007. And then it was finally officially controlled demoed by 2011. That was the 10-year saga of the Deutsche Bank building. There you can see a fresh photo, looks like just a few weeks after September 11th, with the building in the background right there and all of the debris on the ground as part of the World Trade Center complex. You do also have the hypothetical idea, what if the towers never collapsed? What would happen to the building? Well, as far as I know, it didn't sustain much damage as to falling debris from the initial plane impacts. It was more so the damage on the towers falling. So you would figure if the towers hypothetically remained up, that the Deutsche Bank would still be around today because, they're not going to just randomly do a controlled demolition on a building that is this tall. Also, a little chilling fact about the Deutsche Bank building, they did find human bone fragments on the roof of the building years after September 11th, and I guess it's not too surprising. The only surprising thing would be the date, the fact that it was 2 years after, but it's not like they're going to go up on the roof and clean it immediately. Either way, that's just kind of a chilling fact when it comes to this story. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.